For as long as he can remember, Kurt's been trying to get famous online. He's poured years of his life into his channel, Cuts World 96, trying out just about everything to attract viewers. He's done Draw My Life videos, gaming content, sneaker reviews, and even enthusiastic rundowns of his favorite keyboard shortcuts. Once in a while, he features his dad, Chris, who works as a DJ. Chris divorced Kurt's mom years ago, and while he still pops up in Kurt's videos, the split really affected Kurt's mother. Wanted to be the loyal son, Kurt decided to live with his mom after the divorce. He made money by babysitting and kept filming in his spare time, always hoping his channel would take off. But no matter how much he recorded or how many different kinds of videos he tried, Kurt could never build an audience. His viewer count barely scraped past single digits. Meanwhile, one of the kids he used to babysit, Bobby, blew up online. Bobby runs Bobby Basecamp, a channel with real fame and a big following. Kurt still sees Bobby as a friend. But Bobby, if we're being honest, barely tolerates him. He makes it clear every time they interact, constantly pushing Kurt out of the frame when they're on camera together, treating him more like a nuisance than a buddy. After 10 years of failed attempts and rejection, Kurt reaches a breaking point. He decides he's going to give his channel one last push, his final chance to go viral. He comes up with something called The Lesson, which is supposed to teach people the secret to gaining followers and becoming famous online. He starts prepping his car, loading it with multiple cameras from every angle and packing the back seat with water bottles. According to Kurt, this is step one of the lesson. If you're not constantly documenting yourself, then as far as the internet's concerned, you don't even exist. He signs up to work as a driver for a rideshare app called Spree. That's going to be his stage. His first passenger? A man who refuses to wear his seatbelt and instantly becomes suspicious of all the cameras mounted around the car. Kurt tells him they're just for safety, standard procedure, nothing weird. But then the guy starts talking. He launches into a monologue about white supremacy, preaching this disgusting gospel that makes Kurt really uncomfortable. Kurt worries that having this kind of racist content on his live stream, currently being watched only by Bobby, could kill whatever little chance he has of building an audience. So Kurt decides to spice things up. He starts driving a little more recklessly, swerving and picking up speed, all while encouraging the guy to drink some of the free bottled water in the backseat. What the man doesn't know is that every single bottle has been poisoned. Kurt even made a full-on tutorial video on how to spike the water without leaving any trace behind. While music plays through the speakers, Kurt floors it through a stop sign, keeping the vibe energetic as his passenger starts to cough violently and then dies in the back seat. Bobby, watching the stream, thinks it's all staged, just some twisted attempt to fake a murder for views. Kurt's totally fine with that. That's actually part of his plan. The lesson is all about starting with kills that look so unreal that no one believes they're genuine. That way, he could get a bunch of them in before anyone catches on. His next rider is a sharp-tongued realtor who tosses her for sale sign in the trunk as she gets in. They make a bit of small talk, and then, without any pressure from Kurt, she grabs one of the water bottles herself. She drinks it, and just like that, she becomes his second victim. Once she's out cold, Kurt climbs into the back seat, points the camera at her body, and even jokes about maybe drinking the poisoned water himself one day, just for the likes. That's when his phone rings. It's Chris, his dad, asking for a ride. But Kurt doesn't even hesitate. He stares at the screen for a second, then declines the call. No time for distractions. He's fully committed now. With the realtor slumped lifeless in the back seat, Kurt shifts into cleanup mode. First order of business, cover his tracks. He props her head up, holds her phone to her dead face, and, thanks to Face ID, the screen unlocks. Quick as lightning, he opens the rideshare app, leaves himself a glowing 5-star rating, and even drops a generous tip on his own account. Then he spots a text from her office asking if she's on her way to a meeting. Perfect opportunity. He types back a rude, dismissive reply, something that'll make them think she bailed on purpose. Then deletes the thread so it looks like she sent it. Body dumped, seat wiped down, cameras rolling the entire time. He's ready for the next fare. Up pops his next rider, an abrasive meathead named Mario. The guy climbs in, instantly starts complaining about Kurt's indie playlist, and refuses to touch the complimentary water. Whatever. Kurt shrugs and sets a new course. Because Mario selected the cheaper pool option, the app pings another pickup nearby, and Kurt veers off to grab them, whether Mario likes it or not. That next passenger turns out to be Jesse Adams, a stand-up comic and bona fide influencer with an enormous online following. The second Jessie slides into the back, Mario tries a corny pickup line. Jessie rolls her eyes and cancels the ride right there. She's halfway out the door when Mario nudges Kurt. Dude, follow her. Desperate to impress, Kurt offers Jessie a free ride. Surprisingly, she hops back in, mostly, she says, because she needs to get across town fast. As Kurt drives, he tries to mine Jessie for secrets. How'd you blow up online? Algorithms? Collaborations? Hashtags? Jessie just laughs. I'm funny, she says. That's literally her whole formula. But Kurt keeps pestering while Mario keeps lobbing sleazy comments from the passenger seat. Annoyed, Jessie flips her phone to selfie mode, records every cringe moment for her followers, and then bails at the next light. Fed up with two creeps in a clown car, as she puts it. Kurt's gutted. That was his shot at connecting with a real influencer, and he blew it. Fury mounting, he peels away with Mario, still in the car, and guns it onto the highway. He weaves through traffic so aggressively Mario turns green. They end up at a deserted construction site on the edge of town. Mario groans, begs Kurt to stop before he pukes all over the upholstery. Kurt slams the brakes, orders him out to handle it on the dirt. Mario staggers a few steps, hands on knees. That's Kurt's cue. He cranks up one of his own tracks, some awful EDM remix he's convinced will be his theme song, slams the accelerator, and plows straight into Mario. The body sails over the hood, cracks the windshield, and lands in a perfect, grisly tableau for Kurt's cameras. He hops out, drags the corpse behind a pile of rebar, hoses the blood off his car with a water jug, and drives away whistling. Back on the road, Kurt pulls up Jessie's socials, stalking her latest posts. He learns she has a stand-up set downtown later that night. To Kurt, that feels cosmic, two big events in the same evening. Her show and what he now calls his show. Never mind that his stream is still stuck at single-digit viewers, and the only one tossing him tips is Bobby, who remains convinced the murders are fake. No surprise, Bobby's whole brand is fake. He's infamous for prank videos on homeless people, and the single time he helped them was staged for clout. Jessie, on the other hand, wins people over by being genuine, raw, and funny, something Kurt both envies and resents. Still brooding, he pulls into a gas station. He tosses the realtor's for sale sign into a dumpster, fills the tank, and goes live again. Bobby pops in a chat. Dude, you're boring. Spice it up. Kurt bites back, arguing in real time while the pump clicks away. The night's still young, and he's convinced his follower count is about to explode, one way or another. Once all the blood has been cleaned from the car, Kurt decides to take Bobby's advice and spice things up by driving recklessly for his next passengers, a group of socialites named Richard, Kendra, and London. At first, Richard and Kendra are terrified by how Kurt drives, but London thinks it's exciting. She says it feels like an adventure and even jumps into the front seat to chat with him. Eventually, Kurt goes off-road again and drives them to a junkyard. He tells Richard and Kendra to stick their heads out the sunroof because there's a beautiful view that's perfect for social media pictures. They go along with it and actually seem to enjoy themselves, until Kurt suddenly speeds up and slams the sunroof shut, trapping them. At the same time, he starts blasting one of his own songs in the background. That's when a pack of wild dogs from the junkyard jumps on top of the car and attacks Richard and Kendra. While they're being mauled, Kurt grabs a power drill he keeps in the car and uses it to kill London. After that, he drives to a car wash, cleans the vehicle, and calls Bobby for his reaction. But Bobby didn't even see the triple kill. He had already stopped watching the stream, saying Kurt just isn't interesting. Frustrated, Kurt demands to know why Bobby still hasn't given him a shout out like he promised. Bobby tells him he should be more like Jessie because she seems more real. Kurt checks Jessie's socials again, but this time he gets jealous and starts nitpicking, complaining about things like how she doesn't even film her stories vertically. While Kurt drives to a house in the suburbs, Jessie uploads the video she took during the ride, calling out both Mario and Kurt. Then she goes to visit her grandmother, takes care of her, and records everything for social media. Suddenly, someone rings the doorbell. Jessie gets nervous since they weren't expecting anyone, but it turns out it's just Mike, a fellow stand-up comedian, who's there to talk about some work stuff. Meanwhile, Kurt is actually showing up at Bobby's place. Bobby tells him to go away, saying they're not collaborators or friends, and he says all this right in front of the camera while live streaming to his fans. Kurt comes closer, still demanding help, and the audience starts checking out Kurt's stream too, just to see what's really going on. Then out of nowhere, Kurt stabs Bobby with a knife. right as the stream finally hits double-digit viewers. Bobby tries to defend himself with a gun, but after a short fight, Kurt manages to overpower and kill him. Even then, his audience still thinks it's all fake. Kurt's stream shoots into triple-digit viewers after he switches it to Bobby's channel. He even records himself showering to wash off the blood and starts going through Bobby's things. That's when his dad texts him, saying he needs a ride to a gig. At first, Kurt doesn't want to help because he's planning to go to Jesse's show. But when Chris mentions he's meeting a famous DJ, the chat recognizes the name, and Kurt jumps at the chance. Kurt picks up Chris, and right away, it's clear their father-son relationship is awkward. The tension builds fast, and before long, they're already arguing. When Chris finds Bobby's gun in the car, he's shocked and immediately scolds Kurt. That only escalates things, and they keep bickering until they're forced to quickly hide the gun because a police car drives by nearby. They eventually make it to the club, where they meet the famous DJ named Uno. Kurt and Chris ask if she'd be willing to tag Kurt's channel in one of her posts. At first, Uno refuses, but after a while she gets bored of being there and says she'll do it if Kurt drives her to a taco truck. They start looking, and once they finally find a taco truck, Uno gives him specific instructions. She wants Kurt to take pictures of her and then wait in line to get her food. The line is long, so Kurt tries to speed things up by telling gross stories out loud to scare other customers away. While he's distracted, Uno starts snooping around the car and finds Bobby's gun. She uses it to take a few selfies as a prop. Then she grabs a water bottle from the car and takes a drink, but it turns out to be one of Kurt's poison ones. She passes out almost instantly. By the time Kurt comes back to the car holding her food, Uno is already slumped over, unresponsive. He quickly tosses the water bottle to get rid of the evidence. Unfortunately, his suspicious behavior catches the attention of a couple of cops nearby. They come over and ask him to take a field sobriety test. Kurt plays it cool and pretends Uno is just his girlfriend who fell asleep after drinking too much. But then, just as the cops start to relax, Uno suddenly wakes up. She didn't drink enough poison to fully knock her out. Panicking when she sees the police, she grabs the gun and shoots one of them before running off. One officer runs after her, while the other stays behind. Kurt uses the chaos as a chance to jump back in his car and take off, now being chased by the cops. His stream is blowing up. Viewers count rockets past the 5-digit mark. Trying to lose his tail, Kurt drives like a lunatic and ends up crashing through a homeless camp, deliberately hitting a few people before his car finally flips. Meanwhile, Jessie gets a ride to her stand-up gig from Mike, who keeps annoying her the whole way with fake promises about his so-called industry connections. He insists on doing a short set before her, but his jokes fall completely flat. Then Jessie steps on stage, and the crowd lights up. She immediately wins them over. But hidden in the back of the venue, out of sight, is Kurt, watching and armed. After warming up the audience with a few of her usual jokes, Jessie starts talking about her experience riding in that spree car with Mario and Kurt. She says watching how desperate Kurt was for followers actually made her reflect on herself a little bit. Jessie wraps up her set by pointing out that chasing a huge follower count never brings real happiness. The higher your numbers, the more random strangers judge you for laughs. She ends on a mic drop moment, literally smashing her phone on stage, leaving the room in stunned silence. The speech actually moves Kurt. He decides to slip away without causing trouble. Then he learns Spree has suspended service because of the night's killings. Needing a ride, Kurt switches to another app called GoGo and hops into the car of a cheerful driver named David. David cracks a joke about not being the psycho driver killing folks tonight, which hits Kurt the wrong way. Offended, Kurt murders him within seconds. Back at the bar, Jessie's had enough of Mike, who keeps filming her even though she's sworn off social media. She calls a GoGo to ditch him. David's car shows up, but Kurt is behind the wheel. He reveals he's the same driver from earlier and reminds her phone is gone, so no calling for help. Kurt says he's taking her to his place so they can share love instead of hate. Jessie whips out a phone charger cord and strangles him until the car smashes into a trash bin. Kurt stops, gasps for air, clocks her with a punch, and knocks her out cold. He drags her onto his front lawn, positions her in the headlights, and opens a poll in his stream. What should he do with her? Viewers spam kill. Kurt hops back in to run her over, but while he's fixing a camera that fell, Jessie disappears. Chat roasts him for being sloppy. They're right. Jessie crawls into the driver's seat and guns the car, clipping Kurt. She loses control and plows straight through the side of his house. Kurt dives clear. He lunges to suffocate her against the airbag, but Jesse shoves him off, so he retreats deeper into the house. Breathing hard, Jesse turns the camera on herself, begging viewers to call the cops and insisting everything's real. Just then, Chris walks in, sees the wrecked house, and spots Kurt's mother dead on the floor. Turns out she was Kurt's first victim, killed off-screen before the lesson even began. Kurt reappears, grabs Bobby's gun from the car, and shoots his dad multiple times. Jesse tries reversing the car, but when that fails, she slams it forward, crushing Kurt against a wall. Chat urges her to confirm the kill. Kurt's still alive, so she finishes him by smashing his head with his own phone. A quick flashback shows Kurt moments earlier, grinning like a champ over 50,000 live viewers. The chat immediately demands a selfie with the corpse. Jesse obliges. In the days that follow, Kurt's rampage dominates the news. Jesse skyrockets to fame as a multimedia icon, while Kurt is reviled by the press, but weirdly idolized on the seedier corners of the internet, places like 4chan and certain Reddit threads.